And obviously, we have every freedom to take it to a very nasty place indeed. One of, I think, the greatest honours of my life, I will always consider to be witnessing, albeit from far away, the birth of a totally new idiom of music that took over music and the world, that being hip-hop. It wasn't hip-hop in those days, it was a conglomeration of different ideas and different cultural aspects from New York. It wasn't even about coasts back then. And for me, my understanding of it, it was about graffiti, it was about breakdancing, of which breakdancing came from the word breaks. These were sections of music played repeatedly on two identical records, accompanied by an MC who rapped over them. But as I was watching this emerge, it was very clear that there was a subgenre of this scene, and that was electro, that took more from the likes of the Human League and Gary Newman as an influence instead of James Brown and Parliament Funkadelic. Both had degrees of rap, where electro is a little bit more chanty than the MC-based rap music of breakbeat. But the key difference to these two music forms were indeed what the drums were made from. Breaks being made from vinyl records. Electro was about drums, electronic drums, more specifically analog electronic drums. Now, both musical forms tend to sit around the 90 BPM range. You can dance to them, but there's something swaggery. But what makes electro idiomatic is its machine-like quality, because the drums are made from a machine, a sequencer. But usually, when I'm programming drums, I'll give them some kind of swing. But electro wasn't about swing or groove. It was about futurism and this clear, direct sound of analog synths, analog drums. So for a true electro feel, it would just be a tight 16 quantize. I don't know why, that suddenly feels like it's in the pocket. It suddenly, to me, feels like original electro. And they do all sorts of naughty stuff that we wouldn't do in those days, because the art form was being established. The norms, the tropes, the rules, if you will, were yet to be written. So it wouldn't be unusual for you to hear absolutely drenched in splosh, and not as sophisticated as the splosh I'm using there. See, these things, analog synths, from which analog drum machines are simply a derivative. They just use oscillators in different ways, in short bursts, and it's as much about the envelope shapes as it is about any timbral complexity, is they don't create vibrations, and sound is vibration. Traditionally, you record vibrations through a microphone, which converts it into an electric current and some medium for capturing those vibrations, a record platter or some magnetic tape, or indeed digital ones and O's, with the whole purpose of translating that via an amplifier from electric current into speaker movements which replicate those vibrations. So what makes these things incredibly direct is, instead of there being some form of vibration that's recorded and then re-amplified through some speakers, these things are literally controlling your speakers. The electronic drums overtones are much purer, much more mathematically simple, which basically means in a club or in a festival, when you amplify these at huge levels, those are going to be the bassiest, punchiest, kickiest, thumpiest sounds you can possibly hear. But hip-hop was about groove, and its background was about the funk. And I think that the natural merging of these two idioms, breakbeat, if you will, or break music or rap music, as we knew it back then, and electro became the singular form we now call hip-hop. And let me just give you a quick example. By taking the groove of something greasy and funky and reinforcing it with this direct control of your speakers from these analog sources. And there's no more famous loop than a cover of a song by The Shadows, believe it or not, called Apache. And this band is the amazing or the fabulous bongo band. I'd say this is top 3 most sampled loops of all time. I would say Amen first, Funky Drummer second. Like 1999, that's the only drum beat you heard. And then this third. Okay, let's slice that out. Okay, what we're going to do is just make sure it loops good on its own. And I'm using Logic because it's most familiar to me, although I've switched my DAWs to Cubase. When it cycles, it doesn't cycle in a way that it is properly in time. It's something to do with plug-in, look ahead and all of that kind of stuff. So what I always do is loop within the edit window to check a loop's authenticity, if you will. So what we need to do is just make sure that we're shaved right down to the downbeats. Yeah, event list exposes my early days working on MPCs. Okay, that hi-hat is the one of the next bar. And I think I'm right in saying this is 2 bars. So what we need to do is tell the computer that this is a 2-bar loop. 1, 2. You can hear the amount of reverb that's on that break. And again, back in those days, they hadn't, the scene hadn't developed this rule book of super tight, super dry. I guess what the combination of using a live break with loads of cheesy splosh on it and an analog drum is you return that focus and directness. Let's get the old DD001 out. You can hear that flamming, that one. What I'm going to do is just move that back a smidge. And this is the art of, I guess, beat making. And what I'm doing is incredibly simplistic and not particularly artistic in the sense that I'm adding and putting some drums on top of an existing beat. But of the greatest beat makers that have ever existed, Dr. Dre is an obvious one that comes to mind. But a lot of people don't realise that Kanye is the man when it comes to these things. And it is about sitting there meticulously moving stuff around until you find the pocket. And that's when the beat is at its greasiest, as they say, when it just makes you want to move yourself. Oh! It's incredible how lazy these beats become. Now what we can do is actually control different effects via key switches. It'd be quite nice to put a bit of extra reverb on that. So that's quite cute about that, is this one will be dry. these snares in time, and smudge it all together, and then we'll just compare the original loop and see if you feel the electronic drums have added just a little something to the bite and attack. There's also a modulation control on these, so if you take the modulation information down, it will filter it. So let's go region, modulation. I'm just going to make the second drum slightly less present. As I said before, Logic does weird things when it's in cycle, so let's have a listen. Now let's just compress that all together. I like it except for that clap thing that I did. Now, what I'd usually do is go away, have a walk, and then I'd come back and I'd hear all of the little bits of daylight in between my electronic drums compared to the breakbeat. But that's basically how I believe the majority of electronic drums are used within the context of stuff that actually has groove and live players, a mixture of voltage control and vibration. And obviously, we have every freedom to take it to a very nasty place indeed. If you want to see a tutorial of me using those circuit drums that I built with a guy called Cam and a guy called Pro as part of the Crow Hill Company, videos linked in this video's description down below. But also, if you want to get your hands on it, circuit drums, it's made from all of this kind of stuff. And I was hoping today to give you a little sneak peek into how we made these drums, but my friend Cam, who made the majority of the sounds, he's got the flu. So we'll catch up with that in another video. All the more reason to subscribe to this channel. We're a small startup and subscriptions mean everything. I haven't Googled this about the birth of hip hop. It's just simply what I witnessed. And what are your thoughts about this idea that rap music, electro, and I think it was the rap that bound them together. As I say, a true honour to witness the birth, the flash, the black swan moment, the spark. What are your reminiscences?